The massive alien ship, Eternal Dawn, moved slowly through space, its crystal walls sparkling like diamonds against the black sky. Inside, Commander Velthar looked at the glowing screens with worried eyes. His team had been checking planets for months, looking for new worlds where aliens could live safely. "Commander, something weird is happening," called Dr. Nexara from across the room. Her purple tentacles wiggled as she studied the data flowing across her screen. "I'm getting strange signals from the third planet in this system." Velthar walked over to the main control center where colorful lights danced and swirled, showing information about a world that made no sense. The planet looked beautiful from space with blue oceans and white clouds, but the numbers told a different story. "These readings must be broken," said Kivesh, the ship's rock expert. His four eyes blinked in confusion as he stared at his instruments. "Look at this. The ground shakes constantly. Huge storms that could destroy entire cities happen all the time. The planet's core is so unstable, it should have exploded by now. But their long-distance sensors showed something impossible. Down below were huge cities filled with lights, roads that stretched for thousands of miles, and energy signals that meant someone very smart lived there. The most scary part was the radiation readings that showed these beings had learned to split tiny atoms to make both electricity and bombs." Dr. Nexara's whole body shook with fear. "Commander, according to everything we know, this planet should be completely dead. The gravity is so strong it would crush most aliens we know. The dangerous space rays hitting this world are way beyond what anyone should be able to survive." Velthar had traveled to hundreds of worlds in his long career. He had seen planets covered in ice, worlds where acid rain fell from purple sky, and places where the ground was made of sharp glass. But nothing had prepared him for this. A world that should kill everything living on it, yet somehow supported a civilization that looked more advanced than many peaceful planets. "The oxygen levels alone should set everything on fire," whispered the ship's air expert Zolvan. 21% oxygen in the atmosphere. Most worlds we know have maybe 5%, and even that's considered dangerous. These creatures are basically breathing rocket fuel. The temperature readings made things even more confusing. The planet swung between freezing cold and burning hot depending on the season. In some places, water turned solid for months at a time. In others, the heat was so intense that rocks melted, yet the electromagnetic signals showed that beings lived comfortably in both places. "Sir, I'm detecting something else," said the communications officer, his voice barely a whisper. "These signals, they're not just random, they're organized. Music, voices, moving pictures, these beings don't just survive on this death world, they create art." Velthar felt his 3 hearts beating faster. In all his years exploring the galaxy, he had learned one simple rule. The more dangerous a world, the more violent its inhabitants. Creatures that survived in harsh places usually became killers themselves. If beings could live on a planet this deadly, what did that make them? The ship's computer began displaying more information. Massive storms that spun with winds strong enough to tear apart buildings happened regularly. The planet's surface cracked and split, spitting out melted rock. Huge chunks of ice and rock from space crashed into the world all the time. Yet through it all, the lights of civilization continued to shine. "Commander," Dr. Nexara said, her voice filled with scientific curiosity mixed with terror, "I want to study them closer. We need to understand how anything could survive down there." Velthar looked at his crew. They were some of the bravest explorers in the galaxy, but he could see fear in their eyes. Fear mixed with the same curiosity that had driven them to explore unknown worlds in the first place. "The radiation alone should have killed them millions of years ago," he said quietly. "But somehow they're not just alive, they're thriving. Their cities are bigger than anything we've seen on safer worlds." The silence on the bridge stretched for long moments as everyone tried to understand what they were seeing. Finally, Velthar made a decision that would change everything. "Set us in a safe orbit, far enough away that they won't detect us easily. Start recording everything, their communications, their energy patterns, their daily activities. I want to know how these beings learned to live on a world that should have killed them." As the Eternal Dawn moved into position, none of the crew could imagine what they were about to discover. They thought they were studying just another alien species. They had no idea they were about to meet the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, being so tough that they considered their nightmare world home. For 3 long weeks, the alien ship stayed hidden in the shadows of Earth's moon, watching and listening. The crew worked in shifts, never stopping their careful study of the strange beings below. What they discovered made their worst fears seem like pleasant dreams. Dr. Nexara sat hunched over her analysis station, her tentacles trembling as she compiled data that defied everything she knew about life in the universe. "Commander, you need to see this," she called out, her voice shaking. "These humans, they're doing things that should be impossible." Velthar hurried over to look at the recording she had gathered. On the screen, humans were throwing themselves out of flying machines with nothing but thin fabric to save them from crashing into the ground. Others were diving deep into their oceans, swimming next to massive creatures with razor-sharp teeth that could bite them in half. "They call it fun," Dr. Nexara whispered. "They actually enjoy putting themselves in mortal danger. Look at this one." She pointed to a human standing on a narrow board, riding a wall of water taller than most buildings. If he falls, the water pressure alone would crush his bones, but he's smiling. The ship's behavior expert, Morden, had been studying their social patterns. His findings were even more disturbing. "Commander, they regularly consume poison for pleasure. They have entire industries built around creating drinks that damage their liver and foods that burn their mouths. And they gather in groups to do it together." Velthar watched footage of humans at what they called a hot sauce challenge, their faces turning red and water streaming from their eyes as they consumed liquids that would be classified as chemical weapons on most civilized worlds. Yet they laughed and cheered each other on. "The caffeine consumption alone should kill them," added the ship's medical officer. "They drink this stimulant multiple times per day, every day of their lives. A single cup would send most species into cardiac arrest, but they need it just to function normally." The more they learned, the more impossible it seemed. Humans had survived not just one extinction event, but dozens. Ice ages that lasted for thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun, space rocks the size of mountains crashing into their planet. Each time they adapted and came back stronger. "Look at their history," Dr. Nexara said, pulling up translated documents. "They fought through a period they call the Black Death, where a disease killed half their population. Instead of giving up, they used the experience to build better medicine. They survived an ice age by learning to make fire and build shelters. Every disaster taught them something new." But what really terrified the alien crew was how humans responded to smaller, daily dangers. Their intercepted communications showed people complaining about rain, about traffic, about their food being too cold. They treated world-ending catastrophes as minor inconveniences, while worrying about things that wouldn't even register as problems. "On other planets, Commander?" called the sensor operator suddenly, his voice filled with panic. "We have a problem. Big problem." All the screens on the bridge lit up with red warning lights. Down on Earth, massive metal structures were rising from hidden underground bunkers. Weapons that could reach across space were turning toward the sky. Communication networks that had been invisible moments before blazed with activity as humans coordinated a response to something they couldn't even see. "How did they detect us?" Velthar demanded. "We're using the best stealth technology in the galaxy." "I don't think they detected us specifically," the sensor operator replied, checking his instruments frantically. "But their planet is covered with detection systems. They're watching everything that moves in their space all the time. Even tiny pieces of space debris don't escape their attention." Within minutes, the humans had military forces mobilized across their entire planet. Velthar watched in amazement as flying machines that looked like they were designed for war rose from every continent. Their coordination was perfect, their response time faster than most galactic military forces. "They're treating this like they've done it before," Morden observed. "Look at how calmly they're moving. No panic, no confusion. They have protocols for this." Dr. Nexara pulled up more intercepted communications. "Commander, they're not just preparing for us. They have plans for asteroid impacts, alien invasions, robot uprisings, zombie outbreaks, and something called Godzilla attacks. They've thought of everything." The realization hit Velthar like a physical blow. These humans didn't just survive on their death world by accident. They had turned survival into an art form. They prepared for disasters that existed only in their imagination, just in case. They had weaponized their own paranoia into a planetary defense system. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "they're sending us a message." On the main screen appeared symbols that their translation computer quickly converted to Galactic Standard. The message was simple, direct, and somehow more terrifying than any threat could have been. "Unknown visitors, please identify yourselves. We come in peace, but we are prepared for any eventuality." Velthar realized they had no choice. First contact was no longer optional. The meeting place on Earth's moon felt like the most dangerous location in the galaxy to the alien visitors. Even though they wore their strongest protective suits, the kind used for exploring the most hostile worlds known to science, Velthar and his team still felt like they might die at any moment. The reduced gravity made them clumsy, and the complete lack of air reminded them how fragile life could be. When the human transport ship arrived, it looked nothing like the peaceful vessels used by other civilized species. This machine was built like a weapon, with thick armor plating and engines that could probably punch through a planet's atmosphere at combat speed. As it landed with perfect precision, the aliens realized they were about to meet the most dangerous predators in the known universe. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and Ambassador Minho stepped out first. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never met a challenge he couldn't handle. His smile was warm and friendly, but something about it made the aliens want to run and hide. Behind him came General Hyajin, and just looking at her made Velthar's 3 hearts skip beats. Her face carried scars that told stories of battles survived, wounds healed, and victories earned through pain. But what really terrified the aliens was how relaxed she looked. This was a being who had faced death so many times that meeting unknown aliens from space was just another day at work. "Welcome to our little corner of the galaxy," Minho said, his voice carrying warmth that somehow made him seem even more dangerous. "We're really excited to meet you. It's been pretty quiet around here, and we were starting to wonder if we were alone." Dr. Nexara tried to keep her scientific composure, but her tentacles were shaking. "We must ask about your planet's environmental conditions. Our instruments show toxicity levels that should kill any organic life form instantly." General Hyajin looked genuinely puzzled, like she couldn't understand the question. "Toxicity? Oh, you mean the oxygen. Yeah, it's pretty rich, but you get used to it. Our mountain climbers actually prefer the thinner air at higher altitudes. Builds character." "Higher altitudes?" Velthar's translator had trouble with the concept. "You mean you voluntarily go to places where the air is even more dangerous?" "Of course," Minho replied, like this was the most obvious thing in the world. "How else would you build up your endurance? Some of our people live permanently on mountains that reach into what you'd probably call space. Great views up there." The casual way they talked about surviving in conditions that would instantly kill most galactic species made the aliens dizzy. When Dr. Nexara learned that humans considered temperatures that would freeze solid most known life forms as a bit chilly for a morning jog, she simply fainted. That's when something amazing happened. The moment Dr. Nexara collapsed, both humans immediately rushed to help. General Hyajin, this being who radiated barely contained violence, gently lifted the alien scientist while Minho activated emergency medical supplies from their transport. "Is she going to be okay?" General Hyajin asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. "Do you need us to adjust the temperature? We brought extra oxygen tanks if the atmosphere mix is wrong for your species." "I can call for a medical team," Minho added, already reaching for his communication device. "We have doctors standing by who specialize in different biological systems." The aliens stared in shock. These were beings who had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every single day, yet their first instinct when seeing someone in trouble was to help. They didn't hesitate, didn't ask for anything in return, just immediately started trying to solve the problem. As Dr. Nexara slowly recovered, she noticed something else remarkable. The humans had unconsciously positioned themselves to shield the aliens from the harsh lunar environment. Without even thinking about it, they had created a protective barrier using their own bodies. "This is fascinating," Dr. Nexara said weakly, as she sat up. Your protective instincts are so strong. Is this how you survived on such a hostile world? Minho and General He-Jin exchanged a look that spoke of shared understanding, built over countless generations of survival. We learned early that we're stronger together, General He-Jin explained. When everything around you is trying to kill you, you take care of each other. It's not just about being nice, it's about survival. The person you save today might save you tomorrow. Plus, Minho added with that dangerous smile, life's more fun when you're not doing it alone. Sure, climbing a mountain by yourself proves you're tough, but climbing it with friends proves you're smart. The aliens began to understand something profound. Humanity's deadliness wasn't born from malice or aggression. It came from caring so deeply about each other that they had turned survival itself into a team sport. They had evolved not just to endure their nightmare world, but to protect each other while doing it. This revelation was more terrifying than any weapon they could have encountered. These humans didn't just refuse to die, they refused to let anyone else die either. As the days passed, the cultural exchange between humans and aliens revealed truths that shook the very foundation of what the galactic community thought they knew about survival. The meeting facility, built jointly by both species, became a laboratory for discovering just how different their worlds really were. Scientist Jun Seo arrived for the morning session, carrying what he casually called his breakfast smoothie. Dr. Nexara watched in horror as he consumed a bright green liquid that their scanners identified as containing enough vitamin C to kill a small spacecraft crew, spinach that would be toxic to most species, and something called protein powder that registered as a controlled substance on 17 different worlds. This is your morning nutrition? Dr. Nexara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yeah, pretty standard stuff, Jun Seo replied, taking another sip. I usually add some hot sauce for flavor, but I figured I'd keep it mild today since we have guests. He paused, noticing their expressions. Oh, is this one of those things that's weird to other species? Like how you guys think our oxygen is dangerous? The aliens exchanged looks of pure terror. This human considered his breakfast mild. Engineer So Young joined the conversation, fresh from her morning workout. Sorry I'm a bit late, she said, barely breathing hard despite the fact that their instruments showed she had just completed physical activities that would hospitalize most galactic citizens. Had to get my run in before the heat picks up. Only hit about 15 kilometers today, taking it easy. 15 kilometers? Velthar's translator struggled with the distance. You moved 15,000 meters under your own power for recreation? Well, yeah, So Young said, looking confused. It's good for the heart. Plus, I'm training for a marathon next month. That's only 42 kilometers, but I want to get a good time. She noticed their stunned expressions. Oh, is running not common on other worlds? How do you stay in shape? The concept of deliberately exhausting yourself for fun was so alien to the galactic visitors that they needed several minutes to process it. On their worlds, any unnecessary energy expenditure was considered wasteful and potentially dangerous. Then pilot Tae-ho arrived with stories from his weekend hobby, something he called extreme mountain biking. The images he showed on his personal device made the aliens question whether humans had a death wish. This trail's pretty technical, Tae-ho explained, showing a video of himself racing down a mountainside at speeds that would be considered reckless in a protected vehicle. Lots of rocks, steep drops, narrow passages. Lost a few friends on runs like this, but that's part of the sport. They knew the risks. You do this knowing people die? Dr. Nexara's tentacles curled in distress. Everything has risks, Tae-ho shrugged. Crossing the street has risks. At least this way, I'm in control of my own destiny. Plus, the adrenaline rush is incredible. Nothing makes you feel more alive than almost dying. The aliens began to realize that humans had fundamentally different relationship with danger than any species they'd ever encountered. Where other beings saw threats to be avoided, humans saw challenges to be conquered. The real shock came when they started discussing Earth's history. Dr. Nexara had prepared a list of what she considered major planetary disasters from the galactic Database events that had wiped out entire civilizations on other worlds. The Toba eruption, she began, reading from her notes. A volcanic event that blocked out your sun for years and nearly caused a global ice age. This would have been classified as an extinction-level event. Oh yeah, the population bottleneck, Junseo nodded. Rough time for our ancestors. But hey, it taught us to work together and spread out across the planet. Some scientists think it's part of why we're so good at cooperating during crises now. The asteroid impact that killed your giant reptiles, Dr. Nexara continued, her voice getting higher. The dinosaurs? Yeah, that was before our time, but it cleared the way for mammals to take over. Sometimes destruction creates opportunity, So Young added thoughtfully. The ice ages that lasted for thousands of years? Built character. Teho grinned. Plus, we learned to make fire, build shelters, and develop agriculture. Every challenge made us smarter. The pattern was becoming clear and terrifying. Every disaster that would have ended other civilizations had only made humans stronger, more creative, more determined to survive. Then, as if the universe wanted to prove their point, a small earthquake trembled through the facility. The emergency alarms blared, red lights flashed, and the alien systems immediately began evacuation protocols. The humans barely paused in their conversation. About a 4.1, Junseo said casually, not even looking up from his notes. Probably just some settling in the lunar construction. Nothing to worry about. The coffee didn't even spill, So Young observed, pointing to her cup which had remained perfectly stable despite the shaking that had sent the aliens diving for cover. You experience seismic activity and don't evacuate? Velthar asked from behind the emergency barrier his team had erected. Evacuate from a little shake like that? Teho laughed. We'd spend half our lives running away from perfectly normal geological activity. You learn to tell the difference between interesting and time to leave. The aliens realized they weren't just meeting another species. They were encountering beings who had turned survival into an art form. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council had been going on for hours and no one could agree on what to do about the humans. Representatives from thousands of worlds sat in their protective environmental suits, debating the fate of a species that had accidentally terrified the entire galaxy just by existing. We cannot simply ignore them, argued Council Leader Vexmorth, his crystalline body glowing with stress patterns. They represent a fundamental challenge to everything we understand about life in the universe. The debate had started when the first attempt to relocate humans to safer worlds had gone horribly wrong. The test subjects, volunteers who had agreed to try living on a peaceful garden world, had lasted exactly 3 weeks before developing what human doctors called environmental understimulation syndrome. Dr. He Wan, the human psychologist who had studied the failed relocation, explained the results to the stunned council. We need challenge to function properly, remove all danger from our environment, and our brains start creating problems where none exist. Depression, anxiety, destructive behavior. It's like we're hardwired to expect trouble. But your volunteers nearly destroyed our most peaceful colony world, complained the representative from Serenity Prime. They built what they called obstacle courses that would be classified as torture devices on most civilized planets. They started competitive sports that required medical teams on standby. They even tried to make the local wildlife more dangerous by teaching it to hunt. The human volunteers had meant no harm. They were simply trying to recreate the minimum level of excitement needed to maintain their mental health. But what seemed normal to them had traumatized an entire planet of beings who considered loud noises to be extreme stressors. Commander Velthar stood to address the council, his report glowing in the chamber's central display. Perhaps we're approaching this problem from the wrong direction. Instead of trying to change the humans, maybe we should learn from them. The suggestion caused an uproar. Representatives began chattering in dozens of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the chaos. Learn from them? The representative from Safe Harbor Colony sounded horrified. They consider activities that would kill most of us to be relaxing pastimes. What could they possibly teach civilized beings? Survival, Velthar said simply. For all our advanced technology and peaceful societies, we've become soft, When the Vorthen crisis hit last year, we lost 3 entire rescue fleets because our crews couldn't operate in mildly hazardous conditions. Meanwhile, these humans are offering to help us with disasters we consider impossible to survive. The first joint human-alien disaster response mission had been born out of desperation. The planet Cathera was dying. Its volcanic activity had reached levels that made evacuation the only option according to all galactic protocols. The lava flows were advancing toward population centers, the air was toxic, and the ground temperature could melt most known metals. No galactic species could work in those conditions, except the humans had volunteered. Emergency Coordinator G1 had landed on Cathera's surface while the alien specialists remained safely in orbit, watching through their instruments in amazement. Temperatures holding steady at about 180 Celsius, she reported over the radio, her voice as calm as if she were discussing the weather. Visibility is pretty poor with all this ash, but nothing we haven't dealt with before. My team's setting up the evacuation routes now. The aliens watched in stunned silence as human rescue workers moved through conditions that should have killed them instantly. They wore protective gear, but it was surprisingly simple compared to the complex life support systems other species required for far less dangerous environments. "How are they not dead?" whispered the Catheran representative, watching humans guide his people to safety through rivers of molten rock. Within 6 hours, the humans had established refugee camps, organized supply lines, and begun implementing geological stabilization procedures that the galaxy's best scientists could only attempt from the safety of their spaceships. They didn't just save lives, they made it look easy. More importantly, they had fun doing it. The intercepted communications between human rescue teams were filled with jokes, encouragement, and what they called friendly competition to see who could save the most people. They treated a planetary disaster like it was an exciting challenge rather than a death sentence. "We've been doing this wrong for millennia," Dr. Nexara admitted to the council. "We've spent so much energy making our world safe that we forgot how to handle it when safety isn't an option." The solution came from an unexpected source. It was engineer So Young who suggested it during a casual conversation with the Confederation's emergency response chief. "Why don't you set up training programs on Earth?" she asked. "We've got plenty of dangerous environments to practice in. Deserts, mountains, active volcanoes, deep ocean, severe weather zones. Plus, our people love teaching others how to handle extreme situations. It's like sharing our favorite hobby." And so Earth became the galaxy's first extreme environment training center. Species that had never experienced real danger came to learn from humans, who considered danger a normal part of daily life. "The universe," Dr. Nexara wrote in her final report, "has been playing on easy mode until now. These humans don't just survive the impossible. They've turned survival into an art form. They're not just the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. They're the most helpful. They face death with a smile and then offer to teach you how to do the same." The galaxy would never be the same.